Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Another episode of Dropping the Gloves. I hope you guys like the George Laraque interview. We got another one for you today. We got the beat reporter for the Tennessean, the Nashville Predators insider, Alex Daugherty, is going to join us in a little bit. But before we get to that, I just want to say this episode is brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of the Dropping the Gloves podcast. You should open an account today with Bet365 and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code HOCKEYCA. It's HOCKEYCA, Tim, at Bet365. And, of course, Tim is here. Can't get rid of the guy. He's just always around. How was your trip, Tim? You went to Myrtle Beach with the old ball and chain. How did that go?
Oh, yeah. It was great. Yeah, it was. We were in North Myrtle, so a little bit more
cheaper.
Yeah, it is. Less touristy, equally grungy, but it was good. It's a cool area, and this house has been in the family since the 50s, so it was cool to be a couple blocks from the beach. And
family house?
Yeah, it's Julia's friends, their family house, not hers.
Okay. I was going to say, my goodness, another house for this family?
What was the question?
I was just going to say they have another house in the family? They're properties
all
over the world.
Just the one. But yeah, that was great. And I just want to say about the Predators thing too, it's always an unknown when you bring on one of the local beat writers. Cause we can bring on Frank Saravalli and Elliot Friedman, whoever else in the show, and you kind of know what they're going to bring, but you don't always know with these guys who aren't nationally known. And we just hope for the best and, try to bring people on that can speak to this stuff in great detail. And Alex is great. Like entertaining and knowledgeable. He's covered the team for a long time. He's in the room with the GM, the players. He's at the draft. He's at the pressers. So it was really cool to talk about that. And obviously Nashville is the hot team right now with the offseason they've had. So it was really interesting to hear his take on that. And John, credit to you for not making everything about the All-Star game because he was there in Nashville in 2016. And you did mention it, but you didn't make it all about you, which is a good thing.
I wanted to.
I know.
Which is what I tried to do with the Laraque interview that we had on Tuesday. What did you think of that one? Let's do a recap of that one. People love it.
Yeah, and for some reason you're surprised about that.
Yeah, I thought it was terrible. It's funny how I'm just completely out of touch of what a good interview is and what one, that people don't like. I thought the Laraque one was not going to be very enjoyable. People loved it. They're raving about it. They love this guy, and I love Georgie too. That's why I just thought it was me talking with my buddy. I'm like, people aren't going to like this.
Well,
I think it's terrible.
I kind of extend this to you on Slack, but I think you're at your best when you're doing things that are interesting to you, because the more engaged you are, the better the interview is. But you don't really care. You're not thinking about like that clip will do well or people are going to love this. And I care probably way too much about that. And so I feel like the best content is when we meet in the middle. And I think that's what the Laraque thing was. So yeah, I agree. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to that, go take a listen. We talk about the Rempe, but yeah, stick around for this one because it's going to be really, really interesting to talk about the Nashville Predators. Talk about a couple the tidbits he mentioned about Ryan Suter, about him leaving. I thought was pretty fun. And then we talked about a bunch of different stuff. So yeah, stick around. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week. Enjoy. Good morning, everybody. As advertised, we have the utmost authority on the Nashville Predators. When you go to the Nashville Predators website, there should be a picture of this guy's face because he's a part of every decision, I think, and he knows the ins and outs of the Nashville Predators. And of course, it's been a pretty fun offseason for them. Based on the last few years, trending downward, trading all the good players away, buying out some star players. Things were supposed to be rebuilding. All of a sudden, boom, we're back in the limelight. Alex Daugherty has joined us on the show. He's a reporter for the Predators, works for the Tennessean. Alex, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. Good to talk to you guys.
So before we started taping, we were just shooting the breeze, trying to giving you the rules of the show. Family-friendly show. We told you not to cuss. You were very upset, but I appreciate you understanding. We also started talking about teams spending a lot of money in the offseason and maybe the downfall of teams doing that. I mentioned the Minnesota Wild, and you said, Ryan Suter. You don't mention that name around these parts. And I said, why? He's such a likable guy. American. Figured he'd fit in well with Nashville. What is the deal in Nashville with Ryan Suter?
Well, there are two players that get universally booed by the fans at Bridgestone Arena. Corey Perry is the number one, of course. And and Ryan Suter. And Ryan Suter being a 2003 draft pick, first round draft pick by the Predators, spent almost 10 years in Nashville. It's surprising. But now this was, I have to admit, this was before I officially was covering the team, but I remember when all this happened. He talked a big game about signing an extension in 2012. So 2012 for Nashville was a big year. That was the year that Shea Weber signed the offer sheet from the Philadelphia Flyers.
Ooh.
So big money there. But then also Ryan Suter was a free agent as well. So like the big debate was, are they going to be able to keep both of them? Ryan Suter talked a big game with David Poyle about signing in Nashville, was like, I want to be here. I'm in here. And then as soon as free agency hit, gone to Minnesota. And that did not sit well with a lot of Predators fans because people expected him to be here. And then the Shea Weber thing came out of nowhere in terms of money. So I think people understood like Poyle kind of had no choice. He couldn't match what Minnesota was offering. But yeah, that's the background. And so every time he comes back, I mean, now he's retired, but every time he came back with Minnesota or with Dallas, Predators fans did not let him forget.
Now, why Corey Perry? I'm interested in that, the backstory there.
I guess it needs explanation, but I think I guess part of it is the rivalry between the Ducks and the Predators for many years. But, Corey Perry has had a number of run-ins. And I guess it was at the Winter Classic when he was with Dallas. He laid out Ryan Ellis and pretty much, you could argue maybe changed the career of Ryan Ellis at that point because Ryan Ellis got a really big concussion that day and then kind of was never the same player and then now is out. So that's more of an on-ice issue with Corey Perry. But, I'll tell you this. Anytime that I get a chance to tweet about Corey Perry, I know I'm going to get a lot of Predators fans to engage with my tweet about it. So it's like a go-to. If I need a little bit of if I need a pick-me-up or anything like that, I'll just say something about Corey Perry and get people on my side again.
I will say Nashville fans are lovely. They obviously supported me in the whole All-Star thing. I was surprised the reception Patrick Kane got at the All-Star game because they introduced him resounding boos. Obviously based off playoff and the Chicago Blackhawks and him and the Predators. But yeah, it was just funny, the boos, and then they cheered me. Very funny. Yeah,
the Patrick Kane's probably the third option after I said Suter and Corey Perry. But I think there's actually more of a mutual respect with Patrick Kane just because the on-ice contributions are just insane. People understood that he was really, really good. But that's more a reflection of the Predators fans don't like the Blackhawks.
Which, Blackhawks fans don't like Predators. So there you go. In your face. All right. Well, let's talk about this season. The Predators, all of a sudden, they get Barry Trotz as the GM. You bring in a new hot young coach, my former teammate, Andrew Brunette. Great guy. Good just game management. Knows the game. Very, very smart hockey guy. And they make a huge run this year. They go on an 18-game winning streak. Well, they lost 2 in overtime, but 18 games in a row to just thrust themselves into the playoffs. And they lose in the first round, but 1-goal games to the Vancouver Canucks could have very easily won that series, in my eyes, and a lot of people's eyes. Off-season, what are we going to do? Who knows? A lot of big fish out there, Alex. All of a sudden, July 1 comes around, and they've signed the 2 biggest fish in the ocean in Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault. First of all, were you shocked at the signings initially? Because we knew Stamkos was always connected with Nashville. He had some interest. Tampa Bay was obviously moving on. That one made a little sense. And then Jonathan Marchessault came out of left field. What was your thoughts in Nashville day of when the signings came through?
Well, I think all of us were shocked that both happened. No one was too surprised that at least Stamkos didn't happen, even though the Stamkos thing took some turns because when Ryan McDonagh was traded back to Tampa in May, even though the Predators freed up a lot of money there, I think people assumed that was because Tampa wanted to re-sign Stamkos and McDonagh was a part of that, So I think part of that was that, but no one expected them to sign both Stamkos and Marchessault and Brady Shea, who they got on the back end, who actually Barry Trotz said that was actually the priority was to upgrade the blue line, which he said to his team after he traded Ryan McDonagh, look, I know I'm trading a big piece there. I know I'm trading a big presence on that room, on that blue line. I'm going to make sure and replace that on the blue line. I don't want to. And so he made that promise and then delivered. So the Brady Shea actually kind of came first. The Stamkos thing and the Marchessault, look, that was probably the busiest I've ever been in my career. Between 10 a.m., I guess it was around 10 a.m. local time, and 11:30 a.m., with all of those things happened, including Scott Wedgwood, who was also signed. 4 signings. Barry Trotz spent $111 million in about an hour and a half, which was pretty wild. And then the fallout and confirming reports and going downtown to talk to Trotz and to talk to Stamkos over Zoom. I mean, far and away the busiest day that I've ever had that's not been a game. Now, I covered the 2017 Stanley Cup Final. That was busy, 18 hours that day. But in terms of non-game activities, the busiest I've ever been. So it was an exciting day, and there's been a lot of talk about what that means for the franchise moving forward, which we can talk about. But I think you alluded to it. Barry Trotz, he came in and said, he told fans, we need to be patient. Well, then Barry Trotz was not patient. He said, I don't want to be patient. I'm going to go try to do this now. And I think that's really interesting that he just like a year in was like, you know what? We made the playoffs. Let's go for it now. So less patience for Barry Trotz than I anticipated. But yeah, it was a wild day, July 1 for Nashville.
So speaking of Stamkos, because he's the big name, he's the biggest story right now. I want to get your perspective on just basically the Lightning, how they handle the situation. He's the most important player in their franchise's history, and he can still play as he's proven, 40 goal scorer last year. How do you make sense of what they did and letting him go? And then, I know you were there for his presser this week. What stood out to you about what he said to the media?
Yeah, and the only thing I know about the Tampa situation, I think I saw a report that they were going to give him more term and less money per year.
$3 million,
right?
8 years, something silly like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the same amount of money, but longer years. And so it kind of locks him in, I guess, to that. And I guess that $3 million a year price tag was just, I guess we could call it an insult. I mean, you could look at it multiple ways, but I think Stamkos was like, I'm worth more than that for sure. And if you're going to give me the same amount of money, I'm going to go somewhere where in 4 years I can, still playing, I can go out and get another paycheck. But when he had his presser this week, yesterday actually. What stood out to me is I think he's prepared to set another like kind of level of his legacy. I mean, the guy's the third among all NHL current active players in goal scoring, behind Sidney Crosby and Ovechkin, of course. Which is, I mean, he's a walking Hall of Famer. Yeah. I mean, Stamkos is going to be in the Hall of Fame, and there's no doubt about that. I don't think. But I think, what does it say that he wants to go somewhere else? And he won the 2 cups in Tampa. But I think you could skew his legacy a little bit and say, well, he had Kucherov. Well, he had Hedman. Well, he had Vasilevsky. Well, he had great coaching. He had all this set up for Braden Point. He had set up for success. Now, you could make the argument maybe now in retrospect with Nashville having a loaded roster, but now he can go do it in a totally new scenario, totally different setting, and set a new angle of his legacy and be even, seen even greater. I mean, I don't know if he's thinking about that necessarily, but if we look back in this next 4 years, the Predators were to win a Stanley Cup or at least go to one, you could make an argument that Stamkos's legacy is even more impressive than it was before. So that's part of it. He's really, I think he's still adjusting to the change. It seems like he's still getting used to the idea of being in Nashville. I mean, it's only been 16 days, so I mean, he's got time. But we can talk about where he fits in the lineup, but I think he's pretty excited. It seems like he's ready to show a new city just what he's capable of, and to bring an element of winning and winning culture and playoff performance and goal scoring ability to a new city, and just demonstrate what he's good at.
Yeah, you mentioned the Stanley Cup. That's a bold word. now in Nashville, because you said 2017 they lost to Pittsburgh in the Cup Finals. Since then, they have won one playoff round in the last 8 years. It's been just disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. All of a sudden, a little success last year. Now everyone's talking Stanley Cup. Where, and rightfully so. You have to. When you bring in the guys like Marshall Stowe, you can't forget him. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's got some playoff pedigree. And then Steven Stamkos. Where do you see them ranking in the Western Conference now? Obviously, the Edmonton Oilers are the top dog. They retained all their guys. They have a deep forward group. They have Stuart Skinner. The defense is solid. Where does Nashville rank in this group? Are they better than the Avalanche and the Jets and the Stars now in the Central?
Okay, so I've thought a lot about this, and I think they're clearly not better than Edmonton. They're clearly not better than Dallas. I think that they are right there with this other group of Colorado and Winnipeg, like you said, and also I would put Vegas in that category, and probably Vancouver, even though Vancouver's got to do it a couple years in a row to show. But I would put them in that mix. I would probably put them above Colorado at this point, only because Colorado has some other issues going. I mean, they have the single best player in the league, or in the West at least. Well, maybe not David, but he did win the Hart Trophy, so I guess
McKinnon is the best. I agree. Yeah.
So Colorado has the top talent, but I mean the rest of the roster's there's a lot of questions there. Nashville got a lot deeper. They had, people don't need to forget that they had Forsberg and O'Reilly and Nyquist were one of the best lines in hockey last year. So that presumably might stick together, or maybe they'll balance it out a little bit. But that line's still there. Now they have a 2-line team.
Yeah.
They're not a 1-line team anymore. They got to improve defense. They just signed UC Saros. I think that there's a question, obviously, about the only one playoff win in the last, since 2018, that was the last playoff win over Colorado.
Yeah.
But I think that they've certainly improved their roster, and they're trending in a different direction. So, like in 2019, they lose to Dallas. 2020, they have the qualifying round loss against Arizona. 21, they lose to Carolina. Then last year, 22, they get swept by Colorado. They don't make it in 23, and then this year they do make it and give Vancouver a really good series. I think the trend is kind of going up, and I think that's what Barry Trotz saw. He was like, look, we made the playoffs, maybe when we weren't supposed to. I love our new coach. I love our core players. We've also got Forsberg and Josi in the prime of their careers. If we don't give them the pieces now to capitalize and make it happen, then we might be screwed for the next decade. I mean, you're not going to find Forsberg and Josi again in the next few years. You've got to capitalize now on those guys. So I think they're core players. Now, having said that, I think the Stamkos Marchessault thing, they are older. I mean, that's definitely an issue. And will they come in and create the magic that we think they will? That's a question. You mentioned the Minnesota thing. I think you talked about they went out and signed Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. Everyone thought they were going to be really good, and that worked out the way they wanted to. So you worry about that, but I think I don't think it's out of the question to say they're a top 5 Western Conference team, maybe top 3, and that's way better than they were last year. And for the next 4 years, they've got it set up for success, I think.
So a successful season is winning one round?
Man, you could debate about this. I think it's tough to say, but I think they have to make the Western Conference Final for it to be success.
Wow.
So they got to win. They got to win the first round. And now part of that is I think that there'll be a better 82-game team.
They'll be in a better position, yeah.
Be in a better position, not have to play Vancouver or Edmonton in the first round, or Dallas, and so they can maybe win that round, and then they'll have to really work hard to win that second round. But if they make the Western Conference Final, that's a success, I think.
So you mentioned how Barry Trotz comes in. He assesses the team. Obviously a longtime coach, Hall of Fame coach. He takes over for David Poile, the longest tenured GM, the only GM Nashville had ever had in their franchise history. Trotz comes in. How is this guy going to run his ship? All of a sudden, he's signing players. He's being bold. He's being aggressive, something that David Poile wasn't really in his tenure here.
Right.
That might be, due to the players, maybe a destination. Nashville, all of a sudden, players want to come here. He's been in Nashville for 2 years now, Barry Trotz?
1 year officially.
1 year officially. One and change.
was shadowing David Poile for a half year.
So far in Nashville, what's the grade is he getting? Is it an A+, knocking it out of the park, or are people worried about him spending so much money?
Okay, so let me think about it like this. I think the fans would give him an A+.
Yes, that's obvious. Yeah.
I think the fan base is just all in. They love Barry Trotz from start to finish. The moves he's made have just blown people's minds. People think he's, hung the moon right now. I think from a league, how has he built this team perspective, I think it's a little different, maybe a little lower, only because you feel like maybe he's mortgaged the future a little bit here on not a sure thing. I mean, think about it. If these next 4 years, and the reason I say 4 years is because that's the length of the Stamkos deal. Marchessault's is 5. Also in 4 years, by the way, Josi's deal is up.
Yeah.
So it's not like, so 4 years is kind of the time frame I'm thinking about. If in the next 4 years he doesn't capitalize, he has basically said the current prospect group, we're not worried about you. Askarov, Joakim Kemmel, these guys are really solid, but we're not worried about you. So in 4 years, none of those guys are getting really a lot of playing time. If it doesn't work, he is going to be in a cap situation that he does not like, and he's going to have basically no young team. He's going to have to go in the tank, I think. So it's a risk. Now, like you said, David Poile didn't take a lot of risks. He took one when he traded Shea Weber to get PK Subban. That worked out. But David Poile was a pretty risk-averse guy. He was pretty lean in free agency.
Yeah.
He made key trades, good at drafting. Barry Trotz has basically said, you know what, I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to try to make big splashes. I'm going to make big signings. I think, like I said, the fan base gives him an A+. That's because that's what the fan base likes. I think it's maybe – I would give him maybe like a B right now.
Alex.
A successful grade, but we got to see it actually play out. I mean, he just signed a bunch of guys who are over 30 to multi-million, multi-year contracts. That's not usually the way that teams succeed in this league. Usually you do it through the draft by getting elite players. He decided not to do that. It's a risk. We'll see if it pays off. I'd go solid B right now.
Yeah.
So one of the
Gary.
one of the things that these guys will do, especially the forwards, Stamkos, Marchessault, is not only what they're contributing, but how they'll make the roster better by the plays they'll set up, the chemistry they'll have with the line mates and everything. And I'm thinking specifically about Forsberg. And I don't want to say, he's been on an island and hasn't had top talent around him, but you look at the other similar, talented players are playing with guys of that ilk, like the Marners, Pasternaks, Petterssons have had guys that can keep up with them around them, and Forsberg hasn't quite had that. What do you think these additions will bring to his game?
So I think there's a lot of options for Brunette with regards to the top 6, right? I think so. The line last year that really worked was Forsberg and O'Reilly and Nyquist. I think the key to it was Ryan O'Reilly because he's so consistent. He's incredibly so balanced in everything. There's not one thing he's bad at. He's just really, really good, right? And I think Forsberg needed that because remember, Forsberg for years had Ryan Johansson, pretty inconsistent. I mean, good player, but inconsistent. And then outside of that, it was, we had Mike Fisher. I mean, it was like some players that didn't blow you away. So I think that was huge for Forsberg. I would not be surprised if Brunette does not mess with that and says Forsberg and O'Reilly, we know that works. Maybe Nyquist Nyquist had a crazy good year last year. I don't think many people are expecting that again. So maybe he's not on that line. Maybe Marchessault joins that line because Marchessault has a considerably more firepower than Nyquist, at least in his career, and meets that standard of what the kind of player that would work really well with Forsberg and O'Reilly. Then what happens with the second line? They still don't have a bona fide second line center because Stamkos, I think at this point, is not really a center. He talked about yesterday he'd be willing to go back to center. To me, that's not like a ringing endorsement. He just, he would do it if the team wanted him to.
Yeah, he doesn't want to.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 34. It seems like that's a big ask. Now he can still take faceoffs and everything, but in terms of playing center in the middle of the ice, 82 games, I just don't see that. I think he's more of a wing. So, who is the guy that's going to be in that center spot? There's some options there. They're kind of not ideal. I mean, I think Tommy Novak has some offensive skill, but that the guy that's going to be in between Stamkos and Marchessault? I mean, it just doesn't seem like that's the right fit. I like a guy like I've advocated for Colton Sissons being in that line. I think Colton Sissons is like Ryan O'Reilly light. He's very consistent, two-way player, doesn't wow you with anything, doesn't have blazing speed, but he just does a lot of things well. Almost like how O'Reilly and Forsberg balanced each other out. I think you could see that with Sissons. Of course, as soon as I said this, Fred fans were like, "Are you kidding me? We signed Stamkos and Marchessault, and now we're going to get second-line center Colton Sissons." I mean, I think Colton Sissons is criminally undervalued in terms of his ability on the ice, but that's just me. I'm a very, very high on Colton Sissons as a player, but it's going to be so much fun to watch what Brunette does in training camp with this line. How does he start out the year? Does he start Stamkos on the top line with Forsberg and O'Reilly? Does he put Marchessault up there? Does he move Forsberg down? I don't know. It's going to be so much fun to watch.
I'm just excited for their first power play unit. It's going to be incredible.
Oh,
yeah. Forsberg, O'Reilly, Marchessault, Stamkos, and Josi. Like,
yes.
Unstoppable, maybe? That'll be fun.
Yeah.
But I want to go back because you just kind of flippantly talked about the acquisition of Brady Shea. And Ryan McDonagh, I played with him. I've trained with him for years and years. Terrific player. I just want to get that out there. But I did say he had a lot of, wear on the tires. How on earth?
Yeah.
This is, in my eyes, Barry Trotz's best move. Getting rid of Ryan McDonagh with 2 years left at 6.75 and only have to give up a second rounder with him. How did he make that happen? Was that a shocker to everybody that he was able to unload that money and retain none of it?
It is so interesting how that happened because so apparently I don't know how much of the detail you know, but apparently at exit meetings from this past season after the loss to Vancouver, Ryan McDonagh basically went to Trotz and said, "Look, I like it here. I'm a fan of this team. I'm a fan of all you, but I'd like to go back home, Tampa. And if you can make it," he wasn't demanding a trade or anything, but he was like, "If you can make this happen, make it happen." And so Trotz took that information, probably went into his office and did a little Rocky, not that he doesn't like Ryan McDonagh, but he just he just was given $6.5 million to play with, right? And so he made that deal happen. I don't know how he got a second round pick out of it. I mean, to me, that's pretty crazy because he had no leverage at all. I mean, Tampa knew what was going on, and he still got a second round pick. So, yeah, I think that was a huge part of it. And when he did that, he cleared 25. He entered July 1 with $26 million or something, and that made that whole day happen.
Yeah.
Like you said, I like Ryan McDonagh as a player, but it doesn't seem like at this stage in his career he's going to be that difference maker. He had one injury earlier in the year. I don't think that was a problem, but it just felt like for this team to make the next step, they were either going to go after Brady Shea or Brett Pesce was an option, and they needed a more mobile, a little bit younger defenseman. I know Brady Shea's 30 now, but I think that they like him on the top pairing with Josi better than McDonagh just because of the mobility, and he's a little bit smarter, I guess, at this stage in his career, a little bit better at the two-way game. So, yeah, I agree. I think that was a huge signing. Now, 7 years? I don't know about 7 years for Brady Shea. You've signed on to 7 years for this guy. Never even seen him play in your lineup. That's a lot, but that's the price of doing business.
There was 10 other teams offering him 7 years, so
exactly
you have to do it.
So you got to do it. Yeah, if you're gonna have to overpay, you're gonna have to give players term in free agency. So that was the price. That's why I give Barry Trotz the B and not the A. It's like I don't know if this is going to pay off in the long run for this 7-year deal, but
so we had Nikita Zadorov on the show of the Vancouver Canucks, now the Boston Bruins. We asked him a question like, who's the best player in the NHL? Who's the best defenseman? We were expecting Cale Makar because he played in Colorado, maybe Quinn Hughes because he was currently in Vancouver. He goes, hands down, Roman Josi.
I think I saw this. I think I saw y'all talk to him about
well,
this.
Yeah, we get millions of views. You probably saw it. Yeah, we're big time player, Alex. You know that. But that shocked me a little bit. I've obviously played against Roman Josi, a terrific player. Is he, you mentioned all these big forward signings. You have Filip Forsberg. You have Juuse Saros. Is he the key to Nashville's success? Is he the most important player on this roster?
I think if they lost him, like if he wasn't on the team, I think you're looking at a pretty different team. Yeah. Forsberg maybe challenged that last year because of how just every game he was just all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But Roman Josi for several years, I mean, he won the Norris in 2020, the COVID shortened year, but I think that overall there's no one that has a bigger impact on the team day to day than Roman Josi. I just think his ability to command the team and to be able to be the consistent force at every end of the ice.
Yeah.
I think he does not get enough credit for his defensive skills. I think he obviously had a lot of offensive, emphasis in his game. When John Hines was here, John Hines walked into the door and said, Roman Josi is going to be our offense. He basically said, we're going to run our offense through Roman Josi, and you could tell. And that's why he won the Norris when he was there, or that year. He had an almost 100-point season the following year. Lost it to Cale Makar, but was an incredible player. Now he's backed off a little bit. I think Brunette came in and said, look, we can't have Roman Josi be the only offense, mostly because we need to save Roman for other things in playoffs. And, we can't run the guy to the ground during the season. So I think that tells you a lot, like that the coaches come in and say, okay, number one, how are we going to utilize this player? Because I think that's how important he is. You saw recently that Shea Weber was, obviously named to the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I was looking at the numbers. I was a little surprised by that, by the way.
How bad they were.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But Shea Weber is going to go into the Hall of Fame with no Norris Trophy. I mean, should have had at least a couple, but no Norris Trophy. Roman's already won one, has 4 years left, could win another. I mean, Roman Josi could be a Hall of Famer too. I mean, if you look at the numbers. Now, I don't know if his off-ice impact is as big as Shea Weber's is. I mean, he obviously has a much bigger profile, but I think Roman Josi could be the first Nashville Predator to be in the Hall of Fame if he is able to stay healthy these last 4 years. And assuming that that's the end of it. I mean, I would assume that after 4 years, he's probably done, that he'll be 38. But yeah, I think Roman Josi is the best player.
So Zadorov said that Josi was the best defenseman in the NHL. And similarly, we had Connor Garland on the show last year, and he said that Forsberg was the most underrated player in the NHL. Just a guy that when he's on the ice, when you're on the bench, you're kind of in awe of. And I think a lot of it has to do with smaller market, Western Conference. They don't get the national accolades that they do. One of the conversations or questions I like asking is people like you is, the most underrated players on teams. And it sounds like you're pretty high on Sissons as a player, more than other people are. But can you give us another player from the Predators who is way underrated?
Yeah, you're just going to give me more time to talk about Colton Sissons, aren't you?
Give us another name too.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, when I think about this question, it's easy for me to think about like breakout potential. I think Luke Evangelista is a guy that, especially given the recent signings, is going to be in a really advantageous position. I mean, that guy could be elevated to a top 6 role depending on where Stamkos goes to center or wing. Luke Evangelista is really good. He has a really young player. I mean, he was drafted in 21, I think, and he is really skilled. He sort of gained an edge this past year. So in his first half season, he was really hesitant out there and kind of couldn't find the edge that he had when he was in junior hockey. So like but he found it about halfway through. He started chirping guys. He started being a little bit more physical. He started, just going for it instead of like hesitating, and he really excelled. And I think that guy, I mean, I think he finished like 6th or something in Calder Trophy voting. So not anything crazy, but he's a guy I would say is probably pretty underrated. The other would be maybe the combination of Jeremy Lauzon and Alex Carrier on defense. That pairing was really solid last year, and I think that's why they re-signed Alex Carrier. Jeremy Lauzon, former Boston Bruin, went to Seattle in the expansion draft, and then they traded for him 3 years ago, I think it was, and signed him immediately. Really physical player, really improved his maybe awareness. Like he was taking a lot of penalties early, but really fixed that side of his game, but has still remained pretty physical. And then Alex Carrier, just a really solid defensive defenseman, undersized, but blocks a ton of shots, plays a lot on the penalty kill. That pairing, I would say, is the most underrated pairing on the team. Maybe one of the more underrated elements of the Predators. Just those two as a pairing.
Does the 5-6 worry you with Luke Shen and what's the fifth guy, Spencer Stastny? Is that a cause for concern?
The 5-6.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about height wise.
No,
I was like, who's 5'6"? I think Stastny is really good.
Yeah.
I think he's got the potential. Luke Shen, I was pretty impressed by how well he played last year. I think people were just really unsure about what they were going to get with him, and then he had an injury and missed a game in the playoffs due to sickness. But Shen is he just kind of has this ability to be in the right spot at times and to just kind of just body guys. He is not. I mean, let's be honest. He's not very fast. He's
Alex.
a slow guy. He's a slow guy. He takes a while to get going, but he is a guy that you want. He's that prototypical guy you want in your locker room. That veteran, just huge presence. I mean, he's a big guy, first of all.
Yeah,
and he's just he is a guy you want in the locker room. I think. For the price tag, it's not bad. He's going to make mistakes. He's consistent in the fact that he will be there, but he is inconsistent with the puck. I mean, that's just how he is. Spencer Stastny, though, excellent skater, kind of the opposite of Luke Shen. They're kind of a yin and yang. I mean, Spencer Stastny can scoot. He's a really skilled player. So that's a good pairing to have. I think that'll be the bottom pairing too. So.
What is Barry? Because Barry's a little bit of a hard ass, pardon my French. Mm-hmm. The third goalie on this roster is getting a little pressed. You mentioned him, Askarov. Is he just going to leave him? He's going to say, well, prove it? Because they already have Wedgwood. You got Saros. He ain't going nowhere. How do you see this situation finishing up with this good, talented young goaltender?
I think it's going to be a while. Well, okay, so... When I talked to Barry at the draft, the day before the draft, I talked to him about that topic, about the goaltending situation, because there were some rumors about him trading goalies. And he said, I thought it was pretty interesting the way he put this. He said, I'm trying to remember exactly, but he said basically, the goaltender is going to be ready to play when he's ready to play.
Yeah.
Not when the fans say he's ready to play, not when his agent says he's ready to play. He said that. Not when the media says he's ready.
Oh, you asked him that question. That's funny.
Yeah, I did ask him, and he was he was pretty
nice.
He was pretty blunt about it. I think his mindset is he's compared it to Pecorine more than once now. When Pecorine came up, when he was drafted in 2004, I think it was. He was kind of ready to make the jump in 2008. Pecorine was I'm ready to go. And Barry Trotz and David Boyle were like, no, you're not. You're not coming up. And to this day, Pecorine credits that as the reason he succeeded, because he needed another year. He needed another couple years. And then by 2010, he was one of the best goalies in the league. So I think Trotz views the Askarov situation as that. I think he's maybe a little misguided, because I think Askarov's a different prospect than Pecorine. Askarov is... The trajectory for him looks like more of a Vasilevsky or a really talented, just raw, talented goalie. Shesterkin, exactly. That's his talent. I mean, Pecorine came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
but Askarov, I think, is probably going to end up being traded. But I think what you'll probably see is it's going to be a while. It's not going to be this year. It's not going to be next year. It's going to be at a time where he has Saros and Askarov in Nashville, both playing well, similar to a Jeremy Swayman, Linus Ullmark situation in Boston. He's got both playing well, and he can capitalize on Askarov.
Yeah, because it was an interesting pick. They grabbed him in the first round in 2020 when Saros was already established. He was your number one guy, so you didn't need to waste a pick. And I think before that, the last first-round pick goaltender was Vasilevsky, maybe, and then Ilya Samsonov in 2015. So,
yeah, I think Ottinger wasn't Ottinger a first round?
Maybe, but yeah, very rare to have a goaltender, especially at 11. So for them to, we just use him as a backup and then flip him for another prospect is strange. But yeah, Barry Trotz seems to know what he's doing. But all right, last question for you, then we'll let you go.
Go ahead.
2017. Rene, Forsberg, Josi, Ellis, Johansson, Subban, Ekholm, James Neal. Is this team better than that team? Are they going to make it? Do you see comparisons between the two? A couple of players are still the same. Forsberg, Josi. Do you see any comparisons between the two?
So that team was exceptional defensively.
Yeah.
I mean, the defensive unit of Ekholm, Subban, Josi, Ellis, and then Yannick Weber was on that team as well. He was very good. He was basically a sparing guy. He was really good.
Yeah.
That defense is probably the best defense that the Predators have ever had. Just that four alone. I mean, the following year when those four were together, this year that Rene won the Vezina, and the common thing was like, well, he won the Vezina because he didn't have to do much.
Yeah.
They almost won what's the trophy for the least amount of goals?
Jennings.
Jennings. Yeah, they almost won that. So I would say that defensively, that team was far superior. This team has the potential to be much more offensively skilled, right? I mean, they have way more weapons. So I think it's different. The goaltending is just as good, I think, but defensively, I think they're gonna need to improve the back end and prevent more goals. But their power play should be better. Their penalty kill should be better.
Yeah.
They're going to be a better offensive team. At least defensively, they don't come close to that 2017 team.
Well, it's almost mirroring the Edmonton kind of way to build a team. They dominated in the special teams in the playoffs, and they took them to a Stanley Cup Finals. One goal away from winning the Cup, so hopefully Nashville can kind of duplicate that. That's the idea, right, Alex? To win a Cup.
That's right, yeah. And Ekholm on that Edmonton team, I was hoping that he could pull it off, but came very close.
He did. I would like to see you on the ice for Nashville Predators Stanley Cup Championship. That'd be fun.
See me on the ice?
Yeah, dumping beer on everybody, just going nuts. How fun would that be?
That would be fun. I do play rec league hockey, and I'm not going to brag,
Careful.
but our team did. Our team did win the Stanley Keg. It's not a Stanley Cup; it's a Stanley Keg.
At least there is a champion in Nashville. Then it's you.
Yes, I can confirm that I've skated around with a keg on the ice. I did not get beer dumped on me. That was a missed opportunity.
Yeah,
but,
this year though, back-to-back champs maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Alex. Well, listen, I appreciate you joining the show. You were fantastic, my friend. Just a wealth of knowledge. We loved it. Tim, anything else?
No, thanks for coming on, man. We'll do it again sometime.
Great. That was awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to. So when will it air?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yep.
Okay.
And that part will be in the show, you asking that question, which is fun. So thanks for joining us, my friend. Yeah, well, we'll be in touch and have a good time watching this incredible team. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Dropping the Gloves with John Scott, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from to never miss an episode.